another 3-day weekend in the books. That's right, this weekend in the States, it was Memorial Day. You know, in Canada, they have Victoria Day, but that was last weekend. It happens the week before Memorial Day, and it's supposed to celebrate Queen Victoria's birthday, which is, I believe, May 24th. And this holiday was believed to be begun in 1845. That's how long they've been doing it. But here in the States, we do Memorial Day, which is a nice reminder, right? These 3-day weekends, whenever they happen and they conclude, it's a nice reminder that, hey, the same amount of work is going to get done this week that would have gotten done, but everyone's going to be happier doing it. So we shouldn't have these things too often because they're only good, right? And that's the thing. I don't know why weekends are 2 days. I'm sure there's a reason you can look up and be like, oh, that's why they decided. They made a decision one day based on this. And it's probably some complicated thing, right? But knowing humans, it's probably not. It's probably very simple. And it got me thinking, I'm like, yeah, what is the reason? I'm not going to look it up, right? Because I don't do that. But if I were to guess, I bet weekends started, right? And they were formed to be 2 days because humans, they came up with names for all days of the week. And then when they named the last two, apparently, or depending on how you look at a calendar, I know some people, there's this big debate, they're like, a week starts on Monday. And some people are like, well, a week starts on Sunday. And I'm like, I don't care. I believe a week starts on Sunday, but like I get that the energy of a week does start on a Monday. But my belief is that when they first created the days of the week, they did that first, right? And then they decided, well, what's going to be a weekend? And they came up with that after. And they looked at the days of the week and they were like, well, we should just make the two that start with an S together. And they're like, okay, we'll call that the weekend. Because you can't group Tuesday and Thursday, right? Those both start with T, but there's that Wednesday in the middle. There's quite literally a hump in the middle. That's why they call it hump day. It's not because it's the middle of the week. It's because it's in the middle of Tuesday and Thursday. That's right. Don't look it up. But that also, right, you can't call Wednesday hump day if you believe Monday is the first day of the week, because then it's not in the middle, right? But would that make Thursday the hump day? That doesn't make any sense. So you look a fool, right? Pie on your face. I'm jealous, though, because I love a baked good. But I believe, yeah, humans probably made up weekends by being like, yeah, those start with S, make them a weekend. I know there was some guy that was like, well, is that enough time for a weekend? Shouldn't we kind of group in Friday? They were like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, I don't know. If we're going to get over a whole week, right? Have a weekend. We should make it a few days. They're like, yeah, but it doesn't start with an S. What are you thinking? That doesn't make any sense. How did you even come up with that idea? That's so I can't even begin to believe how stupid that is. I'm closer to believing that you're doing a little joke on us, right? We already have a town jester, but are you putting your name in the hat? Are you filing an application? Because that's the dumbest shit I just heard. Unless, of course, you were saying it in jest, which if you do want that position, you're going to have to wait for the current guy to get ousted. And that is by death. That's right. They wouldn't fire a jester. They would exterminate them. They would just get rid of them. They would kill them. That's the ultimate demotion, right? Getting fired. You know where the term getting fired comes from, right? It is from the jesters of the old ages. It's because if they were to get fired, let go, the kings would throw them in a pit of fire and they would die a fiery death because they weren't funny enough. That's why it's called getting fired. Again, that's true. Don't look it up. But I did think about that. I'm like, yeah, I bet weekends are 2 days just because people are like, yeah, I mean Saturday, Sunday. It sounds right. And then, yeah, someone was like, what about Friday? They're like, don't do that. If you were going to make it, right, another day, it would have to start with an S. And so there was probably a debate, right? Well, let's make Monday the third day of the weekend. But they're like, yeah, but it doesn't start with an S. They're like, all right, make it an S. And they're like, oh, well, now we got 2 Sundays. They're like, oh, yeah, we can't do that. All right, well, what about the one before? Oh, Friday? But we all like Fridays. So we can't mess with that. What, are we going to call it Sri Day? SRI Day? That doesn't make any sense. Doesn't sound good. There's going to be a sauce later called sriracha sauce. And that's going to follow the same spelling, right? Sriracha is S-R-I. I'm not an idiot. No? Sriracha? Yo, Sriracha. My boy's locked up. Get him out of there. Shri that man. But I think that's really why humans made weekends 2 days and then they ran with it. Because once you establish something, you can't change it unless you disagree. Then you'll be like, we should change it. Of course, But if it's set in place and you're like, well, I'm too busy with other stuff to change it, you're just going to leave it that way, right? You ever leave something on a counter and you're like, I'll take care of that eventually, and you never do. That's what people did with weekends. So we're like, well, let's just call those two the weekend, and then we'll fix it if we want to later. There was never a later. There should be, right? It should be right now. Make that shit 3 days, because this felt amazing. But again, that's not the grounds for making some change. Just because something is better doesn't mean you should change it to that, right? Is what we apparently believe. But I got a reminder on my phone, right? You ever, speaking of days, your phone, they ever pop up old memories of you? I have an iPhone. So it was like, hey, you remember what happened on this day all these years ago? I'm like, I thought this was a Snapchat thing. They're like, yeah, well, all apps kind of just share ideas at this point. You know, Instagram, you know, those stories you post, they didn't used to have those. I'm like, get out of here. That's crazy. They're like, don't act coy. You're 26. You saw that shit happen. Don't act like you're young. Okay. Message received. Thank you. And a nice reminder that you're not young is, all these pictures of your memories. And it threw up a memory, right? My phone and what is that thing? When you like scroll all the way to the left, and then there's that weird section with like a bunch of widgets that are like, oh, this is the weather. This is the news. You can see how many random small towns have suffered handfuls of deaths due to some thing in the environment, like a tornado or whatnot. And then there's you charge your phone and any devices connected. But at the way up top, right, there's usually some photos that are like, hey, look at this. This is you all those years ago. I'm like, oh, did I ask for this? They're like, no, didn't have to. There you go. Served it up, bud. I'm like, oh, don't. If I didn't ask for it, don't give it to me, right? It's like unsolicited advice. I'm like, oh, don't tell me that, right? If I didn't ask for it. Don't give this to me unless I asked for it. Unless I looked for it, don't pop it up. And that's the stupid thing about the Photos app. I tried to search for something, right? I remember there was a word in a photo, and I've searched for it before. I was able to type in the word that was in the photo and find it. Just earlier today, I typed in the same word. It was like, no photos found, no results, right? I was like, what the fuck? I know this photo is in here. Pop it up. They're like, I don't know. I can't find it. I'm like, so what the fuck is the point of this feature? But no, that's only stuff you're looking for. Stuff you're not looking for, they'll present it front, right, and center, right? And they'll be like, here you go. And something I saw apparently in 2020, it was May 23rd, 2020, 5 years ago, this week, is the last time I was clean shaven. Isn't that interesting? It's not. I'll go ahead and answer that one for you. It's not interesting. But to me, it is. I don't know. But there are things like that in the world, right? That are only interesting to yourself. And you feel like they have like some kind of significance, some kind of impact on your life. I can't really articulate what that impact is, right? What is the meaning of me being clean or not being clean shaven for 5 years? The only thing that means is I haven't seen my chin in 5 years. We used to be very close, right? We would spend most nights together, most mornings, but now I don't know if he's there. I haven't seen him in a long time, right? If a tree falls, you know? So I haven't seen him. I'm just going to hope he's doing well. And we'll get back to that later, right? You probably read the title of this episode. But there are things like that, right? Where you're like, this should hold some significance. But then when you try to explain it to someone else, they're like, yeah, and so? What? I'm like, I don't know. You don't find it interesting that the last time I was clean shaven was 5 years ago? That's not weird to you? They're like, why would it be? Is it weird to you? I'm like, well, now when you pose the question back to me, it does sound kind of ridiculous. They're like, yeah, I know. But there are things like that. And one thing that happened like that, where I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this information? But it feels so significant, but it doesn't matter to anyone. Something that happened like that was, on Instagram, I've been posting all these reels, right? I try to post a reel every weekday. And I recently posted a reel, I think like last week it was. And there was someone that liked it, that we each follow each other. We used to play basketball together. Back when I was in middle school, we were on the same AAU basketball team. And this isn't revealing a bunch of information about this guy, but I'll tell you his name because it's relevant to the story. His name is Aaron Rye. And Aaron Rye, when I posted one of these reels, he liked it. And that was significant to me because I was like, I don't know if he's ever like interacted with any of my posts. At least my reels, I don't think he's liked one up until this point. maybe he's liked it, but he hasn't actually pressed the button. So I was like, huh, that's so weird. And then later in the day, I was watching an NBA playoffs game. The game finished, and then ESPN went on to report other sports happenings. And I just kept the TV on, but I muted it. And I was doing something in my kitchen, and I look over at my TV, and they're covering the PGA tournament. And I was like, oh, I didn't know golf was going on. I guess it makes sense. It's quite nice out. Except this Friday and Saturday, it's supposed to be goddamn 100 degrees for the first time this year. I didn't consent to that. Why are they allowed to do that? But they were covering the PGA tournament, and I saw it, right? They had a leaderboard of all how people were doing. And number 5 on the list read Aaron Rye. I was like, what the fuck? Wait. This same day that he liked one of my reels, the first time he's liked one of my reels, right? I posted what? Maybe like 30 plus reels at this point. I read his name that day, and then later in the day, there's a golf. He doesn't play golf. That's not actually him. But it's weird that the same exact name popped up. And I'm like, would I have noticed that if I didn't see that he liked one of my reels this morning? And is it that thing where like once you see it one place or once you start looking for it, you'll see it everywhere? And that's the thing. To me, I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Is that a sign? Am I supposed to do something with that? But I don't know. It doesn't mean anything. And even me telling you, right? I think it's a big deal. But you probably listen to that and you're like, yeah, so what? Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know what the what is. I don't know so what. But to me, that feels so significant. It feels like there's a very clear sign that the universe is giving me. And I'm like, what the fuck do I do with it? What do you want me to do? Do you want me to hit him up? Yo, Aaron, what's good, man? You don't play golf, do you? Because nah. No? Okay, I saw the wackiest shit the other day. No, it's so cool. No, it's cool. See, even if I explained this to him, he'd be like, okay. I'm like, that's not weird to you. It's your name. He's like, yeah, fine. That's cool. So yeah, I don't know what to do with stuff like that. Right? These things happen. You're like, that has to be something. And it's not. But what if it is? It's too much of a coincidence. But I guess enough things happen in this world, right? The theory of infinite possibilities to where something like that happening isn't totally out of the realm of possibilities, right? First name Aaron, that's pretty common. But the last name Rai, R-A-I, and then to have those in tandem, right? Working together like that on the same day? I don't know. It feels like something, doesn't it? Also, there are multiple ways you can spell Aaron. They both spelled it the same way. Anyhow, sometimes these things happen, right? And then you just have them in your head. You don't know what to do with them. And sometimes with jokes, that happens too, right? You ever have a joke in your head and you're like, I have this joke, but I don't know what to do with it. So you just throw it out there. And one of the jokes I had earlier this week at work was, I was talking to a friend of mine at work, and we were talking about motion detected lights. And then I just thought of it in the instance. I was like, oh, well, if you think about it, aren't all lights motion detected? Because you need motion to power the lights. Money, get it? I got a big sigh after that one, which is deserved, but I had to say it because it isn't like you see the connection. You're like, I gotta acknowledge it, right? All lights are motion detected because you need motion to power them on. That's funny. Laugh. You can tell a joke is funny because I'm telling you to laugh. Anyhow, I noticed that, and I've been doing this for a while, I take a picture of my food before I eat it, even if I have no intention of posting that picture, right? Sometimes I'll go out for a lunch, a brunch, a dinner, and I'll take a picture of my meal, and I'll post it on my Instagram story, just to be like, see, I get out. But sometimes, right, you get food, you eat food, actually 3 times a day, hopefully, and you don't post it on social media. So then do you still take the picture? Well, I do. I still take a picture of my food because for some reason, I don't know why, whenever I get food from somewhere or maybe I make something that looks really good, I'll take a picture of it because I'm like, well, this is so cool that this looks like this. Like I'm so appreciative of this food that I want to like mark this. And then when I go to my camera app, my photos app in a few months, and I type in the word pizza and it says no results found, I'm going to be like, you're a fucking liar, phone. I know that shit's in there. You just suck because your latest update, right? You decided to change the whole format of stuff. It just sucks. You made your phone worse. They jumped the shark. They really ruined it with this one. And then I'll get used to the update and they'll make a new update. I'm like, what the fuck is this? You had it perfect. This is the whole concept of one of the Jake and Amir sketches. The Facebook redesign, that was the name of the sketch, right? I've watched every single episode of Jake and Amir multiple times. Some probably like 50 times. Some of the things I say are because of that series. Like, I don't say sure anymore. I say sure. I always say sure because they say it in that series. And there are little things like that, right? I'm sure you watch some TV shows or some like influencers or whatever online and they start to say, or not start to say, they say things a certain way and then you start to say them that way. And then it's embarrassing if anyone were to ever be like, hey, by the way, I noticed you say this like this. Why is that? And then you lie because you're too embarrassed about the real reason. It's because a vlogger you used to watch in middle school said it and now you say it. The lore is too embarrassing, so you have to lie. And then that becomes your new lore. And then that person, you don't know it, but now they're peddling a lie because they'll talk about you because their life isn't interesting. And they'll tell their friends that, oh, do you know why Gauruv says this? It's because of this. A completely made up, fabricated thing. But that becomes the story. And that's why all history is fake. Yep, that's right. It only took 52 episodes and this guy has now gone off the deep end. It's true. But thank you, by the way. It had been 52 weeks in a row. I double checked. I wanted to be sure. This is the 52nd episode in a row. A year straight. Look at that. I hadn't done that yet with this podcast. I think we're at episode 139. But still, this is the only time I've done 52 episodes in a row, and I'm proud of myself. I am not ashamed to say that. This is a feat. So yes, I won't get into it too much. Maybe I'll talk about it in the next couple of weeks. But like, why did I even start this podcast again, and then continue to do it so consistently? Because I don't like when people do that shit where they're like, yeah, this is something that happened, and now I'm going to talk about everything behind it. I'm like, I don't care. That's another, right? It's one of those things where it's like so interesting to you, but no one gives a shit. Like some people will sit around and listen to it and be like, oh, cool, but they don't care. No one really cares, which is a bad mindset to have. You should go through life just thinking everyone cares, but then not thinking everyone cares because you got to be humble. There's a fine balance you got to really work down. And I have, in effort to establish this balance, we'll talk about why. Maybe I'll make it like a whole half episode of this podcast about like why I even started doing this again and why I continue to do it and will continue to do it. I'll talk about it, but not this episode. I don't want to make it, what this episode is about because I have stuff to talk about, okay? Like taking a picture of my food before I eat it. I realize, yes, I still take a picture even if I don't post it. And I realize, oh yeah, this is like my version of saying grace. Like I don't say grace. Like, how people do that around the table. I was in Boy Scouts growing up, and I remember at every like big event or like every summer camp, before every meal, they would do a camp-wide grace. Let us all bow our heads now and say grace. And it would have some, camp master, scout master, whoever was running the things, stand up there on the steps of the lodge, bow his head and say, thank you, Lord, for the whatever, and blah, blah, amen, amen. And I would always, everyone would be bowing their heads, and I'd just be like a meerkat, just looking around, a little prairie dog. And then some people sitting around and be like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. What are you doing? I could say the same thing about you. What are you doing? You're bowing your head and saying some shit? I don't know what that means. Thing is, I didn't say grace growing up, so I got into here and I didn't think it was my place. People saying grace, I was like, I don't think this is for me. I think this is like for you guys. This is like something you do. I don't do this. But I realize I do kind of say grace in my own way, right? Because the reason I take pictures of this food, because I'm like really appreciative of it, right? I'll get a nice slice of pizza. I'll look down at it. And I'll be like, damn, that looks fucking good. But I have to take a picture because I'll be like, well, I gotta like mark this. Like this is like me showing such a deep appreciation for this piece of food. I don't want to seem ungrateful, right? I gotta mark this occasion because once I eat it, it's gonna be gone. I need the record books to show this. And so yeah, take a picture. And it's pretty much like my version of saying grace because I'm like, no one touch your food yet. You gotta take a picture. I'm not gonna post this, right? I went out to lunch with a friend like weeks ago, and I was like, wait, don't touch anything. And then I was like, here, let me arrange this in a certain way. And I took a picture. We were having ramen. I didn't see Instagram. I didn't see anywhere. That is still on my phone. I didn't even send it to him. I just have that picture because I want to look back at it and be like, oh, yeah, we had ramen that day. That was fire. So, yeah, if you take pictures of your food, it's not a bad thing. It's just you saying grace. It's you showing appreciation to the world for this meal. Amen. I finished Andor season 2, and man, what a fucking good show that is, dude. I love Andor. I don't know if you guys watch it. It's Star Wars, but it's not. If you've never watched Star Wars and you're like, that's some nerd shit, I don't want to watch it, it looks corny, watch Andor. Even the creator of the show, Tony Gilroy, right, director, creator, whatever he is, he talked about like, oh, it's nice. I wanted to make a thing where it's like, even if you don't care about Star Wars and you don't know anything about Star Wars, or you have a certain feeling about Star Wars, you should be able to watch this and just appreciate it. And it does exactly that. So if you do actually like Star Wars, it hits even harder. But unfortunately, right, they only made 2 seasons and then they were done. They were very open about that at the end of season 1 that, hey, we're going to do a season 2 and then it's over. Because that story, Andor, the 2 seasons of Andor, are just the lead up into the movie Rogue One, which came out in 2016. And then that leads into, A New Hope, which came out in sometime in the 1900s. I forgot what year it came out. I haven't done my research. I was too busy looking up what day Victoria Day was, right? 1845 it started. I said that. If you remembered. And I watched Andor season 2, and I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen Rogue One, right? The next step, since 2016 when it came out in theaters. I remember watching it, 2 of my friends. And I was like, well, let me watch that. So I finished the last 3 episodes of Andor season 2. I went right into Rogue One, and I was like, damn. Fuck. I forgot how, like, emotional this movie is. And I actually did. I teared up at the end of Rogue One. I didn't cry. But the last episode of Andor season 2, I did let one tear run down my left cheek. There was a certain part. I won't say what part it was. But right when that happened, I was like, oh my God. This is a lot. And I got filled with a deep sadness. This is something I finished last weekend. I got filled with a deep sadness when I finished this because I was like, damn, this is like devastating. This relationship I've had with these characters for like the past, right, month or 2, however long they were releasing episodes. I forgot what it was, right? 12 episodes. I think they did 3 a week. So that's, right, a month. Relationship I've had with these characters over the past month, it's now over. And this is something I talked about in an old earlier episode of this podcast right here. Forgot the title of it. But I talked about having the same experience with the Umbrella Academy. And even that loss felt so deep when I finished Umbrella Academy that I didn't watch another TV show since then. I haven't watched a series. But Andor came out and I was like, fuck, well, I gotta watch this. And I've met with the same exact feeling. It's devastating. Being done with a series is more devastating than like not talking to a friend anymore. That's what I thought about this week. Because with a friend, right, if you guys don't talk anymore, there's still the idea that they're out there, that you guys can talk one day. But with a series, right, a TV series, it hurts a lot because it's over. That's it. Their story is written. What you've watched is what it is. There's nothing beyond that. That's why when things get rebooted, there's that feeling of like, oh, an old friend. There's more to the story. I knew it. Yes, I get to see them again. But when a series is, announced over, Andor, 2 seasons, that's it. We're not doing any more. That's it. What they've given us about these characters, that's it. And so that's why it hurts a lot. Now you could be like, well, Gauruv, those aren't real people. Okay, well, fair argument. I see where you're coming from. Totally. But I'm going to choose to ignore that. I'm going to... But with people in real life, if you guys don't talk anymore, there's still that idea in your mind, right? That you guys will maybe talk one day. Even if you know deep in your heart that we'll never talk ever again. There's still the hope, which is ironic because that's like the whole through line and the whole catalyst of Andor and Rogue One is that the whole thing is built on hope. The famous line that Jyn Erso says is, well, rebellions are built on hope. Because that's what Cassian Andor tells her. And that's the thing. I think these feelings, they're fueled by hope, right? You don't feel like when you don't talk to a friend anymore that it's the end of the world. Because in your head, you're able to justify it by being like, well, no, we'll talk one day, right? Like in my head, everyone I went to high school with, I don't know why, but in my head, I'm like, yeah, we'll see each other again. No, we won't. And I know that. But in my head, I'm like, no, but they're out there. So I'll see them again. But with a TV show, that's it. Everything you saw is over, right? And that's why losing a friend, like the death of a friend, that's why that hurts so much. Well, it's because, they're dead. But it's the finality of the thing. There's no hope, which is like kind of a freeing thing in a way, right? Where you're like, well, that's it. That's one thing that's nice about some of these TV shows is you're like, that's the whole story. There's a bow wrapped on it, and I can call it done. There's a joke I have written down. I wrote this down like 7 years ago. And it's funny because I think it'll be relevant forever. I don't think you're going to laugh. It's not a funny joke. It's just like an observation. But I was like, one of the scariest parts about dying, honestly, is what if they are still making Star Wars stuff? Like, I like Star Wars, right? I've watched pretty much every single piece of Star Wars content up until this point. What if I get really old and they're still making Star Wars stuff? I'll be like, hey, can you guys wrap it up? I want to know how it ends. You guys are still making shit? Wait, when is that shit announced? They have the conventions where they're like, all right, announcing this series. And you're like, oh, that looks really great. And you're like, in 2045. And you're like, what the fuck? I don't know, man, what the fuck? I have to wait how long? And then, there's production delays. There's probably a pandemic that's going to happen. And it gets pushed even farther. And you're like, man, I don't even care about this shit anymore. And then a teaser trailer, right? Drops on a random Tuesday. And you're like, oh, actually, I care a lot about this thing. Hello, old friend. But yeah, with a friend, there's an idea that you'll see them again. But with the series that's ended, that's it. And so you have to deal with that loss. You can't lie to yourself and be like, no, they'll make another season. Sometimes I do that, right? I search the forums and I'm like, no, they're going to make another one, right? And certainly this character in the series will have like a spinoff, which means the main character in the original series, they'll be there, right? They have to be. Or else the side character wouldn't exist. Tell me there'll be more. But no. When a series is fully dead, flatlines, you got to come to terms with that. And if you've watched, right, Rogue One, you know that, yeah, there's no more story to tell. The rest of the story is the rest of Star Wars. And so that's what you can watch. I was going to watch, right? I watched the last 3 episodes of Andor season 2 and then Rogue One. Next, I got to watch A New Hope. Because basically, Andor, Rogue One, A New Hope is like a trilogy of its own. It's like the trilogy of the Rebels. Because, A New Hope ends with them defeating the Death Star, Luke and Han getting the medals. I didn't spoil it. It's been around for fucking decades. Don't look at me like that, okay? You listen to me, okay? Chances are you probably already seen Star Wars, or you won't watch Star Wars. That's really the 2 sides of the spectrum I feel like I capture. There's no one in the middle. No one casually watches Star Wars that listens to me. It's either you love that shit or you're like, no, I'm good. So yeah, 52 weeks in a row. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. We're not done. This is just the beginning, okay? You gotta do 1 year before you do 2 years. So you've done 1 year. Congrats. Numbers were great. I think when I returned to this podcast, I had 174 subscribers. I think now, last I checked, I have 790. Still trying to get to that 1,000, but the growth has been crazy. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I'm going to give you a little gift in return. Some music I've been listening to this week. 2 songs. How'd I Kill by Cowboy Malfoy. Very good song. Of course, it started to go a little bit viral on TikTok and a lot of edits. So I got put onto that song by the good old TT, Tic Tac. And so I thought I'd put you on in case you don't doom scroll in your free time. So How I'd Kill by Cowboy Malfoy and Tough Luck by Leve. Great songs. About, I think, minute 1 minute, 8 seconds into the Leve song, Tough Luck, it really picks up. And then it's a great progression, right? It's like a whole story in like 3-4 minutes. Anywho, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you always. Thank you for the support. I wouldn't have done a year straight if it wasn't for you. So, whatever you're getting out of this, you're giving me enough to keep me at it. So I hope I am giving you something. And this was, episode 139, week 52 in a row. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And I will talk to you next week. Okay? Bye.